Hi guys, and welcome to Pixel Cherry Ninja's channel. I have a very special video for you today because we have the mighty developer, one of my favorite developers. In fact, the reason I got into FPGA gaming and the reason I bought a MiSTer was after trying this chap's core around a friend's house. You've probably guessed it already. We have the mighty JOTEGO on the channel and he's going to answer some questions for us. So yeah, JOTEGO, please introduce yourself and welcome back to the channel and let the viewers know a little bit about yourself. You know, how are you? How are things? The floor is yours, buddy.
Hello, I'm very pleased to be here with you today. Well, I think most people probably know me by now. I've been around for 6 years making FPGA cores and other modules for people to use. Professionally, I am a hardware engineer. I designed microchips. Particularly, I am a mixed signal designer, as they call them, which means that they mix analog and digital signal. But people will know me here for mainly MiSTerFPGA and the course for the Pocket.
Oh, okay, excellent. So look, I'm going to dive straight in. So the first question I'm going to ask, and obviously there's a lot of viewers that are interested in this, but this is for me first and foremost. So as much as I love the CPS1, CPS2 cores, it's what got me into MiSTer. So the icing on the cake for me is going to be CPS3. And the reason that I'm starting with this is a month or two ago, you mentioned that sometime this year you would like to get back to CPS3. That got me super excited. The question that I have is, what is like a candidate for it? Do you think this is something that's possible on the MiSTerFPGA and the Analogue Pocket, or do you think we need like a future FPGA device, something a bit more powerful? And also, you know, do you think we'll get it in 2025 or will it be later?
I think the main problem with this core, well, there are like a couple of problems. One is that, so we did a lot of work extracting the schematics for the PCB, but because that is only part of the system, because a lot of the system is actually inside some custom chips. We did take photographs from them, like we sent them to Fortec and Fortec opened them up, took some pictures. We started extracting the circuit from one of them. There is still a lot of work there to do in terms of reverse engineering, although we could also go, the quick and dirty way, which is just assume that what the O.M.A.Hei team found out mostly through reversing the software is good to go, and that's usually like 90% of it is correct. So that's always a very good start. So that's one thing. How much we keep digging into the research. Then another topic is whether the FPGAs that we have at the moment are good enough for that or not. And it's basically a matter of how much memory bandwidth we can get, how much data we can get going back and forth. And that depends also on how you implement the core. Once you understand everything, you can do things in a slightly different way. A very good example of that is the Nintendo 64 core. Like at face value, that core should not be possible on a MiSTer if you just follow like the original design of the system, because it is designed around low latency, high bandwidth memories, which is the opposite of what we have on the MiSTer. But the developers did a great work at making a new architecture that is compatible with the original one. And I think he got pretty much all games working. Like I have not been following the latest developments, but he did an awesome engineering work at showing how you can get around the limitations and provide an excellent experience.
Oh no, Robert done a great job with that. So in regard to that core, like the vast majority of games are fully working on there, and there was a handful of games, 5 or less, that didn't work. And what happened then was the community actually made patches for those ROMs in order for them to work on the core. So you can get everything working. They've even done it so if it auto patches the ROMs when you try and load them. So effectively, from an end user experience, everything does work. So with CPS3, I mean, that might be a good move to to get like maybe potentially the MAME implementation just to see if it can fit, and then would it be worth then working on trying to get it more and more accurate as you start learning more about the hardware through reverse engineering and decaps?
I think that's probably the way we have to go. Because
Okay.
we need to start it moving, and it's better to start from the easiest possible position, which is, like to ignore the CD-ROM. Like this system has a CD-ROM, but there are like versions of the games that bypass the CD-ROM, bypass the encryption. So yeah, I think we have to start easy, and then we can add layers of complexity as people demand them, and the core becomes
Well,
more stable.
that makes me super happy. I know, but when I play the ROM, because I do play that game on Fightcade, there's obviously the ones where it has like a CD, but there's a version of the ROM called no CD. It's small and it works, and it's kind of the standard when it comes to emulation and playing it on devices such as or playing it on emulators such as Fightcade. But I'm going to come back a little bit regarding reverse engineering work of Furtek and some of the other work that you do in order to achieve the accuracy that you do. But before I do that, I'm going to ask a little bit of a question, and the reason for this question is this comes up a lot on my Discord. I get a lot of DMs about it, and I feel like it's important for you to kind of give your side of this here. But what sometimes when cores are updated, and I think it's mainly the framework updates, sometimes the functioning cores become less functional. What I want to know is there a way potentially to have like a super stable branch of the JT cores, and whenever there's major framework updates that updates every core, you've still got a working version or working without any kind of graphical glitches in there? Or could we get a way to potentially, like if I really like a core and I'm really happy with it, could I lock it, prevent it from doing updates until I decide I'm going to unlock it and do it? And a bit of a long question, but just finishing up with this, this kind of relates to that. How do you deal with like user feedback? When I check the issues on JT cores and JT bin, there's over 1,000 reported issues. And I think last night when I was kind of prepping these questions, 46 of them still remain open.
Yes, exactly. Like pretty much all the work that we do is public, and you can see that in the issues that come through Patreon. Like we get some questions through Patreon messages that are private by nature, so people cannot see those ones. But the ones they can see are the issues in GitHub. And I think that having over 1,000 and pretty much 1,000 of them closed, I think that speaks a lot of how busy we can be at listening to people, trying to make things better. Like maybe a couple of years ago, I think I still had independent repositories for each core. So there was a repository in GitHub for System 16 games, a repository for CPS1, another one for the small cores like 1942 would have its own repository. So each one was updated independently. So making changes to the framework for one core did not affect the other ones, and they were stable. So that, from a user point of view, it might seem nice because they don't see these changes all at the same time. But from a developer point of view, it was a nightmare because the framework would move to fit the needs of a new core, but then I had to go back and update all the other ones when I needed to change something there. It was very hard to keep them when up to the latest version of the framework when they had been disconnected for a few months. So eventually, the choice that I made was to do like Google. That Google just has like this gigantic repository where they have like all the projects. So I did the same thing. I put everything together in a single project called JT Course. I made the decision to always update all the cores with the latest stuff. That's kind of a selfish decision because it means that I am actually getting a lot of testing done by the final users. Although we do have a lot of manual and automatic testing, you can see that the number of backwards compatibility issues have been fading out more and more over the years. But we do need to update everything at the same time so we get feedback from users, because we just don't have the manpower to test everything ourselves. Like, there are over 1,000 games supported, so we cannot just test everything. But we keep making things more automatic, so we get more checks done in time, so when we make releases there are smaller chances of breaking something old. Then there is another selfish thing here, is that sometimes I know that an update will break something, but with the best information that I have at the moment, that thing should be broken. Like, that has happened with sound filters. Like, sometimes with the best information I have, it means that some sound is too baffled, is not strong enough, and I can feel it. But if I am faithful to the information I have access to, it has to be that way. And the only way to get new information is to actually put it out there, so it bothers some people, and then put me in touch with the people who have the information. That has happened a number of times, and I know that it's a pain for some people because they have to wait for a couple of months until I get access to that information. But putting the problem out there is usually a way of getting that information.
Okay, I mean, I definitely appreciate that, and as a community, we appreciate that. But that's kind of like going to my point, that is it worth either a user being able to like lock a core, or just have like a separate bunch that are working? I mean, I know people will appreciate it, but naturally, I don't know how much development work that would require from yourself and the team. But I know it's a reoccurring issue, where something that works, someone's favorite game that they're enjoying, they run updates all, and all of a sudden, like, it doesn't work. And naturally, there are a lot of variables out there as well, because as well as having the original DE10 Nano, we've got the Tacky MiSTer Pi, we've got the QM Tech alternative, and most recently we've now got the MiSTer multi-system too. So I imagine on some of those the results may vary ever so slightly.
Yes. Sometimes it's just about deleting the old config files. It's amazing how often deleting the old config files just fixes everything. But yeah, I guess this is something that could be raised to the Epsilon. He's the one doing the update all script. Maybe this is a kind of feature that he could add to kind of slowly deploy cores rather
Okay.
than updating all of them at the same time. I know that he's always looking for new features to add, so maybe this is something he would like adding.
Or quite possibly the Epsilon is awesome, man. Like, seriously, up there tool, wow, amazing. Just I mean, so many people have got a MiSTer, they won't know who the developer is, they don't know anyone behind it, they simply know up their tool, they run it, and it does everything for them. But there's a lot of work that yourself do, like looking at arcade cores. Most of the cores are yours, and I say it on, whenever I'm streaming, I'm like, guys, just have a look at the arcade folder. Yes, there's a lot of developers, but heck, no one's done more arcade cores than JOTEGO. But let's have a look. What have we got next? Okay. So now, kind of, I know you do a lot of research between yourself and your team, as well as that you fund others for reverse engineering work. I know you've worked with Vertec before. You've funded some work for him, and I know in regard to like the Twin 16 core, which has games like Gradius 2 on there, you also work together with Scutis on that for the reverse engineering work. Would you explain, because I feel not enough people know about this, but could you please explain the importance of this reverse engineering work, and the importance of funding other people in order to achieve ample results and accurate results that you can then implement into an FPGA core?
So the best documentation we have in general is the O.M.A.Hei project, or MAME in English. And it is the best because it is a documentation project. Like, the aim of the project is to document, not to play. The fact that you can play is just a proof that the documentation is good enough, so the game is playable. Pretty much all the information in MAME has been gotten from reverse engineering the software. So looking at how the software is written and trying to figure out what the hardware should be to match that software. And a lot of times that's not enough. And the only way you really have to understand how things work and to understand quirks and features that the software may not be using or may only be using in a way that is hard to detect, is to actually look at the hardware, to look at the real circuits. If we are just redoing the work in MAME on an FPGA, then okay, we are making games more enjoyable because the FPGA gaming is more enjoyable than emulation, but we are not advancing the community knowledge. And we are not, in the end, we are not making things better by nature. So we do take as a commitment for preservation to always advance the knowledge of what is out there. And we have done that through a lot of schematic extractions that we always publish. They are always in our JTBeam page. There is a folder called ACH for schematic, and it's full of PDFs that have either chips, and Scatis has done a lot of the chips, and a lot of schematics for arcade PCBs. And I know people are using them for repairing too. We use them for core development. Like you can see, like you can unveil how the real address decoding works, how the real video register works, like things that are present on the hardware, but maybe the game was not using, like all that gets reflected there. So you cannot do preservation without getting your hands dirty and touching the actual hardware, not just plugging it and watching the screen. You need to see how things are connected, what the frequencies are, and then you need to feed back this information. So we also feed a lot of the information back to MAME. That's something that if you just go to the MAME webpage and you see contributions or issues, you will find my names in pull requests and issues reports. So, whenever someone says I'm contributing to something, because this is open source, you can go and check whether these people actually did something. And I'm proud to say that we are not fighting against MAME. They are a documentation project, and we try to enhance that project as much as we can too.
No, that's freaking awesome. I absolutely love MAME, man. I love MAME. I still use it, because there's a lot more games on MAME that aren't available on FPGA yet. So I either use MAME or I use Final Boy Neo and RetroArch. But yeah, software emulation still has a big space for me. But moving over to the next one now, right? So are JT cores open to other developers? And what I mean by that is if other developers want to make cores and release them under like the JT cores umbrella. And yeah, the reason for this question is I remember a while back, Salal Retro Gaming, I really liked the guy because he released Toki, and that was one of my favorite games in the arcade, and he released that as a JT core. And I remember there was a bit of confusion where people were like, oh, JOTEGO's released that, and you clarified there straight away saying that no, this was made by, I can't remember what their Discord name is, MX3 something. I know on Twitter they're called Salal Retro Gaming. So they use the JT core umbrella, the JT framework to release Toki for the MiSTer, and then they brought it over to the Analog Pocket. Is this open to other people should they want to use your work? And is there a cost or is there anything that's involved in that?
So JT Cores tries to be a comprehensive project. Like ideally, we would like to be like MAME in the sense that it covers hundreds and hundreds of systems, and it is designed that way. So it is very easy to add a new core to it because you just have to focus on the specific parts of the system that are new, how they are connected, and you just describe the system in a few files. So it's meant to be very easy to do things. And a lot of people have been taking files from there without really working inside the whole framework. Like for instance, Pramod made his course with this, and he didn't want to use Linux because this is a Linux based framework. So he copied the files to Windows, and that kind of disconnected him from the updates. And as far as I know, he's been using the framework up until now. but he didn't contribute to the framework. Like you will not see any Git commit from him. But some people have made contributions to the project because it's open source, and sometimes it is just features that they want, and they have made pull requests. So we take those changes. But the best one has been the Toki core that was that came out of the blue. I didn't know he was working on it. It just came up, and he was happy to merge the code within the JT Core's repository, because he initially had a different repository for it. And that benefited him, because now we take care of a lot of things. So like if we need to update the core, his core to match changes in the framework, we take care of all of that, and we do the testing and we do the distribution for other platforms. So there is a benefit on putting your core inside JT Cores, because again, you kind of outsource a lot of the stuff now. I know other people have started using it too, but maybe they have not finished their work, or they have not merged it yet. But it would be great if we got more people directly making cores. I mean, we do have people working on parts of the cores, but it would be nice if if we get more, one full core made by another developer, like in the case of Toki. That would be nice to have.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, you may have answered part of this question, but let me see. So I do understand that your work is open source, as well as the reverse engineering work that you fund. So does this mean like anyone's free to use your work, right? Provided they adhere to the license agreement. So for example, they take whatever it is that you've put out there as open source, take it, use it, as long as they then feed back into it and make their code open. Is that actually okay?
Because of the license, if you use the files, you publish your work, and if you make changes, you notify those changes back, then you can use the files. So that's the way GPL3 open source licenses work. Is that happening overall? So
Okay.
that seems to be the case for most people. Like I have seen forks of my repository where they are targeting other FPGA platforms that may only have like 10 or 20 users, but they like having fun with tinkering with the system, trying to get cores to work there. So I know there are people who are actively uh, keeping copies for these specific targets, as I call them. Then I know of people who are using the files in a private way and requesting a license. Like one decent example is there is an MSX cartridge called the Carnivore 2 that uses one of my FM chips, and they requested a private license. And I have done a lot of these requests, and depending on the size of the project, I may charge a little bit, or I may just ask for a copy of what they are doing. It's just a case by case negotiation. But I have to say that no one has the right to publish a private MiSTer core using my files. Like no one. Like if you see any core or anyone saying that they have used the JT whatever file, or that they want to stop using the JT whatever file, and then they are talking about cores on MiSTer or Pocket that do not have open source files, then they are breaching the license, and they shouldn't be doing that.
Okay, that kind of leads me to, I guess, my next statement, and it could also be a question. So, I did witness recently that some other developers have kind of taken your work, right? So they've released something, and what they released, you've got a lot of your files which are open source regarding the schematics, all the reverse engineering work, and I've seen them release something, and then I've seen them close source that only release it as a binary, even though potentially the work that they've used is your work, but because it's closed source, there's no way to verify whether they've done everything from scratch. But the fact that is closed source raises questions, and like 95% of the work was done. So that was just that. Yeah, that was very, very weird to say the least. But I mean, I've seen other developers that don't take this lightly and nicely and end up kind of changing their stuff because having your kind of work asset or potentially hijacked, not saying it is, just saying potentially hijacked, and then what you suspect might be your work then to be closed source. I mean, what did that have? Did that have some kind of effect on you? Is that something that affected you personally? Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I know that some people have been doing that because they have said it. It's not like we have to guess what is in their binaries because they are saying what they are using. So um, yeah, and they shouldn't be doing that. By doing that, the only thing that they are going to get is that maybe I do not publish all the files until a core goes public, and there is nothing more to do with that module. So yeah, so if they are not playing alone with a community, then then we need to protect the community too. And you gotta be also careful when you release a core before the needed research is done. Then you are actually taking resources away because the community is only interested until, let's say, the first version of the core comes out. So if not all the research is done by that point, then it's much more difficult to get the funding needed after that, because now people want to get to see the next new game. They do not want to see, like that one there. So it's also kind of irresponsible to release cores when the due research is not done or is not guaranteed.
No,
And
no, I know. I was going to
sorry.
say I get that because for most of the users, once the game's out, the game's out. It doesn't matter whether it's a MAME implementation or it's based on reverse engineering. So that is a very, very good point.
Some people may wonder, well, I mean, some of my modules are hidden. Isn't that a problem with licenses? And the thing is that I did my homework, right? And so when I use a module from a third person that is GPL3, I ask for permission, for written permission to use that module. So when I do not publish one file for a while, I actually have permission to publish binaries for even if I'm using, like this guy's module, because I ask for permission for that. And well, and in my case, like pretty much everything I do is my own license, because I've been doing this for 6 years, so I have thousands and thousands of lines of very low code at the moment.
I mean, to be honest, my next part was going to be that. So you've been working on FPGA gaming devices for 6 years. Like by my count, you've released. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, by my count, you've released 68 cores which support 1,085 games. That's quite an achievement. So where do you see yourself or where do you see yourself and FPGA gaming 6 years from now?
Oh, yeah, so it's been really a lot of work. Like yeah, it does feel like work, because if there was no Patreon and no funding, maybe I would be releasing one core every year or every 2 years, just for the fun of it, not not trying to do one per month or things like that. If as long as we keep having funding, then we will keep paying the employees. Like there are a couple of employees, um, and we will keep moving things. I don't know how long this is going to be there. Like at some point, people will move on to something else. When we move to a different platform, then I don't know. I don't know if we will keep getting the same level of support. But yeah, but I would like ideally, I would like the project to grow a bit more so we can have one more employee. Um, and yeah, and we can do like bigger projects, because it's hard to do big projects with the size that we have at the moment. Because people also, I know that some people say, yeah, we can wait for a few months to see, this big thing. Yeah, but the fact is that if you do not make new releases, every couple of weeks or so, people just disappear. So it's hard to keep funding big projects when you also need to keep a constant stream of new games.
No, I get that. I mean, we definitely appreciate the work that you've done. I mean, I always say it. All the calls I have on the MiSTer, like if I never got another call, I'd be happy. Naturally, I want other calls, but I've got the main ones that I want. I was speaking to a friend, a close friend of mine, the one that got me into FPGA gaming, the one whose house I went around to, played Super Turbo, and I was sold. And I said to him, I'm speaking with JOTEGO tomorrow. Is there any questions you think I should ask him? He was like, I got CPS1, I got CPS2, I got Sega System 16. I don't care. There's nothing else that I want. So, and I was like, okay, because obviously I want CPS3. He hates that game. So, right, moving kind of on here. What future calls or games like excite you the most? From two different levels here. So one from the level as a developer looking at the kind of next challenge, what you think might be the limitation of the MiSTer potentially, and also. As a personal kind of as a personal course, something that you want to do for yourself, something that you enjoy, then would be, I would like to see this game come over. So on the two fronts, from a developer and as a gamer.
So from a developer point of view, the cores that are satisfying to do is when you know that you have 100% all the information to make this accurate. And then you can make a mistake, all right, and you can, then people, can catch it and then you fix it. But that's a human mistake, but the information is there, and you know that eventually you will get it 100% right. That happens a lot with old games. Like that was the case with the Fairyland story core. That was very satisfying to do because we unveiled a lot of information that was not available at the moment. That was actually like very wrong in some cases. Like we corrected all that, and we knew that we were certain about it because we had extracted the whole schematics, and in that case there was no custom chips, there was nothing hidden. It was very clear what was going on. So those are very satisfying. And a lot of them are a bit old in that sense. Like these games where it's very easy to get all the information are usually from the early 80s. So we'll probably see some of that too. Then from my personal point of view, I want to do the Run and Gun. That's a Konami basketball game. That's very, very. Is it Run and Gun? I'm assuming
It's
it's
run
right.
and gun.
Yeah,
You
it is
know.
Run and Gun.
I had to look that up because you mentioned that to me before, and you said that I want to do a run and gun game when we were speaking, and I thought it was a run and gun game, as in you didn't give me the title. It's something like Contra, and when I searched for the game Run and Gun, it's actually a basketball game, isn't it? That's the one you're talking of.
Yeah.
What a name,
Yeah.
Run and Gun! It makes no sense for a basketball game.
I'm happy to hear that because I was always wondering, my English must be very bad because it doesn't make any sense to me. Okay.
Yeah, and I remember us speaking privately before, and you mentioned it, and I was like, "What game is this?" And then I was like, "Oh man, I think I was speaking in riddles." And then I found out, okay, he's actually talking about a game called Run and Gun. So okay, it's interesting. So hopefully we'll see that in the future. So when do you think now we'll jump into the next generation of FPGA gaming? And with that next generation, what kind of arcade systems? Because I know you've done some console stuff like the Neo Geo Pocket, the Neo Geo Pocket Color, but you're the arcade guy, and we know you and love you for your arcade releases. So if we get a more powerful FPGA project, now I know there's some in the works, but naturally, like everything in the retro gaming scene, everything just gets delayed. Some have even gone to another planet of non-existence. So when do you think we'll get the next generation of FPGA gaming? And yeah, what arcade games do you think we're going to get on there? Are we going to start getting like the Sega, the newer Sega models, some of the kind of later PlayStation hardware, maybe Naomi? So what is your kind of take on it? And obviously none of this is gospel. We'll take it as speculative.
Yes. I have a prototype of one of these upcoming FPGA systems in the office. Like I got it maybe a couple of weeks ago by mail. It is still missing some of the documentation that I need to start working on it. But if there is a prototype, that means that at least that system has a good chance of becoming real. I know that Taki is also working on another one. He's been talking about it, and I've been talking a little bit with him about that. So I'd like to be kept in the loop of of whatever hardware developments are going, because I want all these projects to be successful, to be honest. Like whenever a hardware developer has approached me, I have always reviewed the schematics of their systems for them. I have provided feedback. I'm not going to compete with them. I'm not going to make my own hardware systems. I just want them to make the best hardware so we can, move to more complex systems. And maybe these systems are the ones like the Sega Virtua games, like the Virtua Fighter. These, I don't know whether these systems are possible in the MiSTer at the moment, because you could argue that the Nintendo 64 has a similar or maybe even a better quality than a Virtua Fighter one, but the hardware is very different. And the arcade guys who were always used to having more bandwidth, better memories, and maybe that's the difference between being able to do a Nintendo 64 where you already had to do a lot of architecturing to get that working, and maybe not being able to do a Virtua Fighter because you just cannot get around what the original system was doing. So I guess all these systems will get done. I'm not so sure about the Naomi and systems like that. Maybe they turn out to be easier. Like the PSX1 was still a core that was doable by a single person, even if it took a whole year or a little bit more than a year. It was still doable by mostly one person. But at some point we will get hit cores that will just take forever to be done by a single person.
Okay, right. So this part here, please explain to us about your Patreon membership, because you have a very active Patreon. As soon as I got my MiSTer, I signed up straight away because I did see the benefits. When you're in your own words, please explain the benefits the subscriber gets, and also, I mean, you've kind of touched on some of it, but let's kind of just do it in one big blast here. So what it gives to the subscriber, and what it gives to FPGA gaming in general. So what it does what it does, how it supports other developers, how it supports other members of staff, and what it does in general. Because without the Patreon membership, a lot of what is available on MiSTer would not have been possible.
I was lucky enough to be on Patreon quite early. So when I started, there was not so much activity there, and there was a lot of visibility for the FPGA stuff. So I got a lot of subscribers, and then I have been able to keep them engaged over the years. So we have a good funding coming through that, and I think it's part of my responsibility to try to help other developers who do not have that kind of exposure, or who do not want it, because some people just do not want it. Like they just have like their own a main job that takes a lot of time. They don't want to engage into this. So what I do is maybe I contact them, I ask them to do work that is in the interest of our current research, of our current project, to help with bug fixing, or if they are just doing general research that is of interest to the community, and they have a smaller Patreon page, then I will just join that, normally at a separate tier that doesn't even exist, where I can just put like a high lump of money. And yeah, that's my way of trying to divert some of the money from Patreon to other developers in the community. And of course, like a big chunk of that money also goes to the 2 employees who are, I mean, they are not so public in the community, but they are making public work. They are they're making these files that you see, and you can see them. I mean, they are signed, and you can see their names in the commits or in the issues, and like everything is public. And you can so even if we are several people, you like still when you see a commit, it reflects an individual. It reflects whether it is this guy or that other guy. So it's not under a generic umbrella. So you still see the individuals contributing. Then as an user, what you get is you get access to the beta, so you can test out games in advance. Sometimes I try not to make the betas too long, but yeah, but let's say that sometimes there is a very bad one, which is like the system 18 is going to be like 1 year in beta because we got stuck with one problem in the graphics, and yeah, let's see if we can finally go back and close it, because sometimes you just lose momentum, you start doing other thing, and then it takes a while to go back. But in general, there is, if you look at my JT page, you can see a calendar that of when we are releasing things in as beta and as public, I mean public form, and that give that can give people a good idea of what the benefit of two things. First, what the benefit that they get if they have beta access, and they can also see the commitment of making everything public, because they can see that eventually things get public, and they become accessible to the community. And the source code is usually always public. Like, it's very rare that I do not publish the source code for a beta. Very, very rare, because people who use my repositories for, as I said, for other FPGA platforms or to make modifications, they have always respected that if a core is beta, they do not publish the binaries. They may make a private build, but they do not share it. So and that's very polite and very respectful from them. Then the users also get, this, we talk about the history of the games, the technical details about the games, and I know that some people enjoy that, because either because they say that they like that, or maybe because when we do not publish something of this, they say, hey, why didn't you talk about the technical details this time? Like I like that. So we know that people also enjoy that.
And I definitely enjoyed the Patreon post, the technical write-up, but then I actually really like the tips that you give for the games. You say if you stand in the top right corner and beat this guy in the head with the baseball bat, you can actually get through this part easy. So I generally try those out. And I'm like, oh wow, look, I'm actually good at this game. Right, okay. I've kind of reached the end now, Jose. I mean, it's been absolutely great. It's been a massive insight, and I know the viewers will appreciate it. The last thing I'll ask you before I say, is there anything you kind of want to finish to round up the interview? Is, do you want to give the viewers of the channel, I don't know, anything exclusive or special? Maybe the next chord that's going to come out as a beta, or just something. If you're able to do that. If you're not, we completely understand, and you can just go and just finish up and talk about anything else you want to talk about.
Well, we want, I think everyone will know the House of the Dead, which is a Sega shooter. It's one of these light gun games. And there was a predecessor of that game by Sega called Laser Ghost that is a kind of Ghostbusters game. Like, when you see the characters, they just seem to be ripped off from the movie. But at the same time, the game is a lot of fun. It is a 3-player game. You can play with 3 light guns. So that's one of the games that we have, coming up really soon. Maybe in a couple of weeks if everything goes well. And yeah, you can play it with mouse. You can play it with we have added support for Indian light guns. I haven't talked, as it often happens, like users normally know a lot more than I do. So as soon as I did that, they said, well, maybe this could also work with the Wii mode, because that can be used on MiSTer too. Or so yeah, so we have to look into adding support for that. So yeah, so I enjoy, spreading the word about games that maybe were not so well known, or that faded out because others were more popular. So I think this Laser Ghost is it's good fun. I'm very happy to bring that to the MiSTer.
Oh no, awesome. Well, I've got a Sinden light gun now. Sinden were kind enough to send me one a while ago, so I've been enjoying your calls on that as well. So that's well, Jose, thank you, man. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank you.
This has been enlightening. Honestly, it's nice to get your side of events, how everything works, and I'm sure the viewers at home have a better understanding of what happens in the background of FPGA gaming than they did before they watched this video. So, look, thank you very much. Hopefully, we'll get you back on the channel in the near future again, maybe when some new FPGA technologies out that you're working on. But yeah, man, thank you so much for your time. Have an excellent day.
Thank you. You too.